Installation options for architectural grade aluminum windows, renovation of an existing structure. Welcome to Building Knowledge 101. Watch as we explore architectural grade aluminum window installation options for renovating existing or historical structures. Now let's talk a little bit about installing windows, kind of move into our last section here and talk about installing windows. In the United States, we are really fortunate to have some beautiful historic buildings. In most old cities you go into, there are older buildings, historic buildings there that we want to preserve and maintain, but we also need to bring them up to current codes and standards. So we're seeing a lot of renovation, historic renovation of older buildings. Here you can see examples of double hung windows in an older brick building. So the original windows are probably wood sash with 1/4-inch glazing, single glazed windows. So they weren't very energy efficient. Oh, so many times, the sashes break, the windows become inoperable. They're not safe, it's not secure. So replacing those with newer windows really improves the energy performance, the interior thermal comfort of the building, the safety, the security of the building, and it maintains the historical look of the older building. So that's what we're looking at here. Let's talk a little bit about that. Again, another example of an older building renovated with newer windows. I mentioned interior thermal comfort. This is a big driver with thermally broken windows. If you look at this dining hall here, those windows are pushed right up to the glazed elevation. Now this project is in northern Illinois, so it's in a cold area. If this was the original old sash, wood sash and 1/4-inch glazing, no one would want to sit that close to those exterior walls because there'd be a huge cold airspace around that because the heat inside the building would be being pulled through to the outside, and you'd have a very discomfortable area where it's cold and feel drafty near the windows. But you can see with newer modern thermally broken windows, we do not have a problem with interior thermal comfort, and people can sit comfortably right up against those windows and enjoy their meal and not feel a draft. So from an owner's perspective, this is leasable space or usable space. With inefficient older windows, you would be losing that space around the perimeter due to horrible interior thermal comfort. But by renovating it, going to newer windows, it allows greater usable space. So one of the things you run into with older buildings, you can see in my section cut here on the left, we've got a brick and block building, and there was original old steel sash set in there. A lot of times old sash had nailing fins or fins that projected up into the cavity. And if you started trying to pull the frame out to get the frame out, you could damage or break the brick around the surrounding area. Another thing to consider is asbestos. Oftentimes in older buildings, you have in that cavity between the brick and the block asbestos. So if you start trying to pull the older frame out, now you're getting into a hazard waste removal situation. So oftentimes when renovating older buildings, the sash is removed, maybe part of the frame is cut away, but the perimeter of the frame is left in the rough opening. So you can see in the details here, the original frame is still in the rough opening. And what we're doing is bringing bright metal and trim and flashing to frame over that and create a new rough opening that closes and conceals the older frame still in the rough opening. So we're using trim work panning to make a new rough opening and set a new window into that. So that's very common with older construction. So here are examples of different trim panning units that are available. All manufacturers you work with are going to have a nice library selection of different types of panning that can wrap around the opening and conceal the existing frame when you're leaving it in the rough opening, leaving it in the brick elevation. The panning here is designed to mimic older brick mold or wood framing, so there's a lot of different options that are out there, but they maintain the historical look of the original trim wrapped around the opening. Then you can see these all have spring clips so that once that panning is in place, this is called preset panning, goes into the opening first, and then the window is pushed in and the legs of the window engage that spring clip and lock into the panning. That is all we have time for in this video. If you'd like to watch more of our 101 video series, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kawneer Company, Inc.